and welcome to the latest episode of Grand Slam KBO podcast, our weekly podcast on the Korean Baseball League. My name is Matthew Kerr. Andrew Farrell is not in the hot seat for this week. He is away on family business or business in general. Not sure. We'll find out a little bit later. In the meantime, I am taking over the hot seat, and we're going to do our best to stay PG for you guys. So, joining me this week, we have the father of modern cycling in Korea, and the person who's decided that Buffalo is a city in Canada. Bradley Hyder, how you doing?
How you doing, my friend? Nice to see you.
So the Buffalo comment has a bit of grounding to it. Would you like to tell the listeners what you're wearing today?
I am wearing a fan or artist-created T-shirt that I purchased online at a website we'll post later on the show, tpublic.com, or later in the description. And it basically says the Buffalo Blue Jays, which is where the Blue Jays have made their home base, as the Canadian government has not allowed the MLB teams to enter Canada or any American at this point. The team has relocated to Buffalo, and the Maple Leaf has been replaced by the Mammal. So they converted a minor league baseball stadium. They upgraded it as much as they can. They put in a weight room, better facilities, and that's been an interesting story to follow during the MLB season. So I follow the Blue Jays whether they're based in Toronto, Buffalo, or anywhere else in the world.
Good stuff. Will you continue supporting them if they move elsewhere and don't become the Blue Jays anymore?
Probably,
that is the question.
yeah, but I would.
Why are you not a Kiwoom fan then? You'd be on brand for it. So
I could add Kiwoom to the list of teams I support. I mean, I don't have enough. I mean, that would be one of 4 teams I could change on a weekly basis.
So you've got two sides of the coin, the edge. What would it be for Kiwoom to be selected as part of that coin now?
Like what would I...
You've got Doosan one side, MC the other.
Yep.
KT is around the circle, or was it Lotte? So where would Kiwoom fit on that coin now?
Oh, well, we would have to go to like what is it? Like a pyramid? We would have to go to a die, right? Which has six sides. So we could actually have 6 teams on a die that I could roll every week. And I've got one of 6 teams. So the question would be, Matthew, which teams would not be on that die?
Oh, I can do one better for you. I have here my little box of dice.
Okay.
Where I can actually show you that they even go up to 20 sides on a single die.
Oh boy! So you're telling me the KBO has room for rapid expansion?
Indeed, I've even got the intermediary D12 12-sided die, the little dodecahedron, and we've got here a 10-sided die, which will cover you in the meantime.
What's that word you just used? A dodecahedron.
Dodecahedron, a 12-sided sphere or a 12-sided shape.
Kind of sounds like a flying
flames.
creature from the Game of Thrones. But anyways, I learned something new today.
As you do. So, talking of merch, though, I tried after the last one I was on, where we heard about all of the cool minor league hats and other minor league merch. I tried to go on the website to purchase a couple of hats. I tried to get a hat for the Rocky Mountain Vibe. I tried to get a hat for the Rocket City Trash Pandas. I tried to get 2 of those, actually. My wife really likes the logo and wanted one herself. And we also tried to get one for it. I think it was the Copa version of the Hickory Crawdads. It was like this llama-style design with this kind of teal, green, turquoise bill. It was a really nice design. But I get to checkout, and lo and behold, I'm not allowed to buy it because I don't have an address in the United States. So, I'm going to remain without those hats for a little while. But we'll do our best and see what we can get sorted out.
You're going to have to put the call out to one of our American fans, one of our followers in the United States, or befriend an American soldier that is stationed here in Korea with access to an APO.
Indeed. Or I'll just wait until someone makes a trip over here that listens to the show. They could bring over a hat as a gift, and in return, I will gift them a KBO hat of their choice.
There you go. A hat exchange. I like it.
Indeed. So I think that's about enough about the general merch side of things. Let's talk about the KBO. So
Okay.
the main story from this week is a bit of an unfortunate one. And that was that Aaron Brooks is done with the Kia Tigers for the season. He's gone back to the United States, rightfully so, to take care of his family after his wife Whitney and his son Weston and daughter Monroe were involved in a collision after a
Right.
driver drove through a red light. Like, it's been widely covered, so we're not going to go into the red light running side of things because the law exists for a reason and everyone knows it should be followed. But
Right.
I just want to say, like, it's a terrible situation, but it's fully understandable that Aaron's had to go back to the United States, and we wish him nothing but love, support, and all the best for a speedy recovery for his son, Weston.
Yeah, I agree, and it's nice to see that there seems to be an outpouring of support, not just from his teammates on the Kia Tigers, but also players from around the league and fans who follow all teams. So sometimes it's these tragic events that bring people together, but it's nice to see people realize that baseball it's a game, it's a business, but there's more to life than just baseball.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the outpouring of support from all of the fans and especially all of the players, even across different teams. So
Yeah.
many of the players had either Weston written on the bill of their hat or they had the WWMB hashtag trending earlier this week in Korea for like Weston, Whitney, Monroe, and Brooks. Brooks
Okay.
relating to
Yeah.
Aaron himself, just saying that they hope he gets better and that they hope that everything leads to a speedy recovery. Understandably, though, like he's going to be, because of quarantine rules, because of family obligations, like Aaron Brooks is not going to be able to return to the Kia Tigers for the remainder of the season. And that leaves the Tigers basically missing an ace. So at this point, we have to ask the question, like, what does this mean in general for the Kia Tigers in their playoff aspirations? Like, what do you think about this?
When you look at the history of sports, regardless of the sport or the country that it's played in, I've always said this, that teams that become champions or that win well are teams that can perform well when some of their star players are unable to perform, usually in injury, but in this case, dealing with important family matters. I would say, I guess it doesn't look good for the Kia Tigers, but what really makes a champion, whether you're hitting a baseball, you're shooting a ball, or shooting a puck, it's the willingness of players, maybe the players that are sort of behind the scenes or the players that don't normally have the spotlight shining on them, to step up and perform well despite people's expectations. So with that belief, I believe that any team, including the Kia Tigers, I wouldn't write them out because of this. I'd be nice to see the team continue to pull together and perform well, despite losing one of their most important players.
Indeed. They did have a pretty rough start to the week. This week, the Kia Tigers started out losing against the Kiwoom Heroes. Then after that, they ended up splitting the series with KT and now splitting the series with Lotte. So they ended up on a losing percentage this week, but given how jarring losing someone to such circumstances could be, I think it shows the strength of character that Matt Williams has built in the team, in that they've responded well. They had an adjustment period where probably everyone was affected, everyone was worried, and it may have affected the team mentality. But for the back end of this week, they've looked pretty solid when they've taken the field.
Right. Well, and looking ahead, as I am this week, they've got a series coming up against the Kiwoom Heroes, and I think if they can aim to take 2 out of 3 from that team, I think that would give them a good chance to move ahead or try and get into that last place position into the postseason, depending on how Doosan does as well.
Indeed. So speaking of the postseason, let's take a quick look at the way the standings are at the moment. So we have the NC Dinos, like, far and away in first place. Like, they've taken 9 out of the last 10 games.
Yeah, on a 7-game win streak, which, correct me if I'm wrong, that may be the hottest winning streak of the season.
I believe after today, it would be 8 in a row as well, actually. The table we're looking at hasn't quite updated yet. But yeah, like, it's, if not the hottest, it's up there as one of them. So they started strong, they're finishing strong. I think at this point, it's going to be very difficult for them to let up and drop that first place spot. But then behind them, 4.5 games back, you've got the Kiwoom Heroes. And then the surprise package in third, you've got the KT Wiz, who are 6.5 games back, only 2 back from the Kiwoom Heroes at the moment. And that could go to 1.5 games, depending on how the second half of the doubleheader between Kiwoom and Doosan goes today. For the wildcard spot, you've got Doosan, Kia, and Lotte all within 3.5 games of each other, or it'll be 4 games of each other if Doosan managed to pick up the win in the second half of the doubleheader today. But we've been in this situation before when it comes to that wildcard spot, and it comes to the tail end of the season, last 20, 30 games. No team seems to want to hold on to the 5th place spot. It's like they reach 5th, then they stop trying, drop off a bit, and another team takes the place. And it just hot potatoes between them.
Yeah, it's like not a revolving door, but it's like a Rolodex. It rotates. I don't know. Maybe. Why do you think that is? Do you think that because for the fans who don't know and the fans that do, if you finish up in the 5th place, you've got your foot in the door. You've got like your big toe in the door, because for you to progress, you've got to win 2 games. You have to win 2 games in a row against the team that only has to win 1. And then if you get through that level, you've got a few other teams ahead of you that are not playing while you're playing. And it's just a really big uphill battle. And I don't know. What do you think? Do you think some teams just are demotivated by the massive hurdle that's in front of them?
I think so. Like the last time a team won the Korea series from a lower position in the standings was actually Doosan, back when they dethroned Samsung a few years ago. But what ended up happening was the wildcard game didn't exist at that point. It was brought in, I believe, the year after that, or 2 years later. But at this point, no team that's entered the wildcard has managed to advance to any degree in the playoffs. I don't think any teams actually got out of the wildcard game from 5th at this point. And hypothetically, this is the reason I nominated it for the Hall of Shame when we did it the last time you and I were on the show together, was that you have an nearly impossible challenge for a team that finishes 5th to overcome. So let's say you've got the wildcard game. It's a 2-game series with home field advantage to the 4th place team, and they must win both. So that means you're going to be blowing your 1st and 2nd starters out of the rotation. Even hypothetically, you have a short rotation, like you drop it down to 4 starters. That means your 3rd and 4th starters are going to be going against the 1st and 2nd starters for the team that finished in 3rd.
And they haven't played baseball for, at this point, what would you say, at least a week?
It would be just over a week. So they'll have had a chance to rest. And specifically, they'll have had time to prepare specific strategies for dealing with your guys. Like, they would know they're against the 3rd and 4th starters. And they would know they don't need to prepare for the guys at the top of your order for a while. So then you're against the 1st, 2nd starters in the order or the rotation with your 3rd and 4th. If you somehow manage to get all the way through it, it's going to be your 3rd starter who finishes out the series. That means you're at the bottom of your starting order, or you're going with a short rotation rest for your 1st and 2nd to go into the game against the guys in 2nd. And at that point, you are always going to be 1 or 2 pitches behind, with the teams ahead of you having a significant advantage in terms of preparation. Like, if there was a proper rest between these series, I would have no problem with the way the format is set up right now. But in terms of that significance of the order in which your guys are going to get to go out there, it's just an uphill battle. If you're going to go one game behind, almost guaranteed, or if you're only going to split the first two games of that series. Because the rubber match in it, if it goes up to game 5, is always going to be either the top of your order on a short rotation, or it's going to be a guy lower down in your starting order versus the top of the other team. And if somehow you go through, then it's the bottom of your order against the top of theirs, and it just gets worse.
Yeah. I agree. And you look at, I'm going to only say a few words about it because I don't want to compare this to the MLB, but they have the wild card. There's been 5 World Series winners, including the last ones, that started in the wild card game. And I would like to see the wild card system changed so that it's a either a 1-win pipe showdown or a proper best of 3 series and a bit of rest, as you say. But I guess with the structure of this league, you can't really build in a lot of rest between series. Otherwise, you're going to have the Korea series wrapping up in December.
Yeah, unfortunately. We may be staring down the possibility of that this season anyway.
Right. But definitely, they've got to, at the very least, change the current wild. I mean, I've got a towel around my neck from a wild card game that I went to in Jamshil, NC Dinos last year. They had to win 2 games against, who was that? Can't remember now. The Twins. It was the Twins. They had to win 1. So, anyways, I'd like to see some improvements to the wild card system.
And unfortunately, that nomination for the Hall of Shame didn't win because Bunting ended up winning it. Go figure.
But, well, we knew that the Gojak Dome wasn't going to win.
Why? Because you named it?
Yeah, I think what we should do the next time you and Andrew and I are on together, we should talk about our nominations and we should trade them with each other. I'll give you mine and Andrew can give me his, and we'll see what happens.
That could be a good idea. So we just get them in advance and then discuss them at large. Then I could just pull the die out of the box that I've got over here.
Yeah, throw on here. Yeah.
Or I could use the massive paperweight die I've got somewhere down there. It's hidden in a box behind me. But it's a die that's about 10 centimeters cubed. It's a absolute beast. Glows in the dark as well. It's lovely. But that could be pretty good. Just roll the die and then give out the nomination one at a time.
Yeah.
You know what? We should have you read all of them because then you'll have said the winner.
Okay, that's the closest I'm gonna get.
Contact victory
on this thing. Yeah.
It's
very
all right.
nice.
But we'll hopefully get you off the donut this week because it's me or Bradley at this point, and you know what? I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. All right then. So in like the one thing that's been kind of overlooked a little bit during the playoff race has been what the teams at the bottom of the table have done. Like Hanwha, they did this a couple of years ago as well. They seem hell-bent on upsetting the established order and just making sure no one has a successful end to the season. Like, the last 2 weeks, what have they done? They tied series with Kiwoom, LG, and Kia. And then this week, they swept Doosan and Lotte 2-0 in their series as well. Like,
so they haven't lost this series in a while. They're 6.
Yeah, like
they're 6-4 the last 10.
That's insane. Like, why can't they play like this the whole season? Like, they obviously have the potential when they're motivated. Like, do you think it's a motivational problem for them? Like, they just don't know how, or they hadn't gelled this season yet? So what do you think may have caused that?
I couldn't honestly know. I would definitely like to hear what good friend of the program, Virgil Hodges, has to say about this. But I couldn't know. I mean, you can't really say that the pressure's off. I mean, you could, But I mean, realistically, they were eliminated from the playoffs. What, in July, August? So maybe when it's become abundantly mathematically impossible for them to make the playoffs, maybe that's the point they just stop caring. And then with that, I don't know. Maybe I don't follow the team under a microscope. Do they experiment?
Maybe.
It's a good time to experiment when you've got really nothing to lose. But
maybe they've started blooding the new players at last.
Right. So, Virgil Hodges, if you have any theories or any inside scoop, definitely let us know, and we can put that out there in the next show.
Indeed. Aside from that, it just seems to be that nobody wants that 5th place spot. Lotte have gone 2-4 this week, getting swept by that Hanwha game, and then it's another story of Straley pitching a blinder and then having no run support. He ended up losing the game 2-1 against Kia today. And realistically, Lotte were not without their chances. They had so many guys on base that they just did not bring home.
Right.
As a Lotte fan, it's quite frustrating for me. They did get out hit by Kia today, admittedly. It was 9 hits and 4 walks to 6 and 3. But an error from Sonas up where he just lost sight of a fly ball and it drops 3 meters in front of him. That's a horrid way for it to go down.
So you said the lot of innings ended up ending with Lotte having men on third base?
No, there would be guys on second or guys in scoring position, and then just not bringing him home.
Okay, just not
scoring position. It's an old favorite of those of us on the My KBO page. Risp hitting.
What's it called?
Risp hitting, runner in scoring positions.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, was not there today. So, how about you? Which team were you cheering on today?
Well, I was going for the NC Dinos. Seeing the 7 or 8 game win streak. Obviously, I only cheer for teams I think that are going to win the series. Which is why I've stuck with the NC Dinos most of the season. There were concerns about 2 weeks ago when the Kiwoom Heroes were what a game behind, maybe half a game. And yeah. I knew I was on that Kiwoom website looking to buy my jersey. But fortunately, it never came to that. So I was able to save $75 on an Addison Russell jersey, and I have not bought that yet.
All right. Well, I'm sure that that may be in the wins if they end up winning the Korea series. So
absolutely.
The main thing that people can look forward to at this point of the season then is, especially after it's been confirmed now that Doosan did put away that game against the Kiwoom Heroes, is that there's now a game and a half between the KT Wiz in third and the Kiwoom Heroes in second. And KT Wiz have 7 games in hand on the Kiwoom Heroes to try and close that gap and to see how the rest of the season pans out.
So you're saying KT is right behind Kiwoom, is that right?
They are breathing down their necks hard. And
sure.
For every 1 game KT lose, they seem to win 2 at this point in the season. Another walk-off for Baejongdae today ended up giving them the advantage in their game and seeing them through. But, where did this come from? KT were basically taking the Hanwha Eagles' place as the perennial last-place team. But then just through free agent acquisitions, offensive acquisitions, and a couple of guys coming in and filling out their starting rotation, they've become a credible threat to the playoff picture this season. It's good to see a new face in there.
I agree. I'm as I was telling you when we first started talking today, I'm not a Wiz fan yet. But I agree. It's always nice in any sport to see a team that have they ever made the playoffs?
No, this is their first. No. This, assuming they do manage to see it out, which, given their current trajectory, I don't see them not doing. This will be their first run at the playoffs.
You need not be born in Suwon or work for Korea Telecom to want to see them do well. Definitely a underdog at the beginning of the season, and yeah, we can't overlook the performance of some of the men on the roster, including the man who leads the league, Rojas Jr. So,
Indeed.
I think he's had a big part of it, not just what he's done individually in his performance, but maybe how he's inspired the team as well, and encouraged them to perform. So I think he's got to be a big part of it.
Indeed. 37 home runs for the season for Mel Rojas Jr. Right behind him, chasing that home run leader's pennant is going to be Ramos for LG. Like, he's on 35 as well. We haven't seen a Mexican player this dominant in the KBO since Kareem Garcia for Lotte way back when. I'm excited to see how the home run race ends up between those two. I think, given the number of games we have left, 140 home run season is definitely not out of the question. Possibly 2, if they keep pumping him out the way they have been the last few games.
Right.
Which is
he's
nice to see.
Pulling up the stats on mykbostats.com. Another friend of the program. Rojas had his best season in home runs. In 2018, he had 43 home runs, but his average was only 305. When I say only, that's still pretty impressive. This year, his batting average is 344.
Hang on,
and his on-base
I stand corrected on something. I apologize. Ramos is at 38 right now.
Oh, it's 38 now.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a beastly week. I'm sorry, I was checking last week's stats.
And his on-base percentage is over 400. So
that's insane.
Yeah, he's having the career, the season of his career, without a doubt. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I may be ordering a KT Wiz jersey by the end of the season.
That is ridiculous. Like, you've got 2 guys in the league who have an OPS of like borderline 1,000. Like, Mel Rojas is just above it. Ramos is just under it. Mm-hmm. But still, like, an OPS of near 1 is ludicrous. And yeah, like, I'm excited to see who wins the Hitters Championships this year between them.
Well, we've talked about it before, but I'll just mention, really, that'll be the big talk of the off season is where does Rojas go in Korea or in Japan or in the world? We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, you've got to think, like, given the number of guys who've gone back to MLB after the last few seasons, given a successful season in the KBO, you would think, like, he's going to get an offer. Like, if he's going to win a Korea series, this is the year that it's going to happen. And then after that, you'd imagine he'll probably get an offer from some team that needs a power-hitting outfielder in MLB. I'm not entirely sure on who that would be. I don't follow MLB religiously myself, and I'm not familiar with which teams need a guy like that. But I'm sure there's definitely a market for it. And this season, Ramos, and a couple of pitchers in the league as well have definitely put themselves in the shop window and given themselves an opportunity to maybe earn themselves a shot in the show next year.
Yeah, and rightfully deserved. And a future nomination for the Wall of Shame are these 1 year. Now, I don't know if this is the result of the KBO immigration laws or an organizing body that oversees sport in general for the country, but to the best of my understanding is non-Korean citizens are limited to a maximum 1 year contract in the KBO or in the K-League or any other sport. And I just think you're doing everyone a disservice by offering only a 1 year contract. And I think I'd like to see that change, but we'll go down that rabbit hole in the future.
Well, fun points. Like, we were discussing off the air about perhaps making a KBO trivia program. Here's a piece of trivia for you now. There has been one foreign player in the KBO in the last 10 years who was offered a multi-year contract.
Okay.
Who was it?
Can I guess? I don't want to say his name incorrectly. The Samsung Lion. What's his name? You know who I'm talking about. Dark-skinned chap. Very good player. He ended up going to Japan. What was his name? Am I right? Am I wrong?
The pitcher or the second baseman?
Second baseman.
Yumiko Navarro? Nope, not him.
Okay, not Navarro.
He ended up having several seasons with Samsung, but to my knowledge, he did not get a multi-year deal. I could be wrong on that, and if anyone's listening wants to correct me, please do so. But after him, there was one guy who did end up getting a multi-year deal.
Okay, who was it?
He played down in the southern area of South Korea.
So we're looking at Gwangju or Busan, I'm guessing, because you know so well. Busan, it's a latte giant?
Not a latte giant.
No? Tiger?
Not a tiger. There's one other southern team that you could go for.
Oh, you're not thinking Eric Thames.
Eric Thames got a 2-year contract.
Okay.
After his first year, he was so well-liked in Changwon, they tied him down to 2 years and managed to get either special exemption or they just found a loophole that allowed them to get him on a multi-year deal. That's why his return to the States to have a go at MLB was delayed, and that's why he put up phenomenal back-to-back years of offense before finally making the jump over to the Milwaukee Brewers.
I thought I knew everything about Thames. That's two things I've learned today. I've learned what a 10 or a 12-sided die is, and I've learned that Eric Thames had a 2-year contract. Now, again, I don't know if that required permission from immigration. Like I said, I don't want to blame the KBO or any particular team, but if it's been, again, I just like to see if a player's good enough for a 2-year contract, regardless what his citizenship says, he should be offered. If he's not good enough, fine, give him a 1-year contract. I just like to see the foreign-born players and the citizens treated as equally as possible.
Yeah, I think one of the major issues with that from a team perspective is that if the guy has the security of a multi-year deal, then there's no incentive for them to do their best in that 1 year. But from the same standpoint, you've seen guys like Merrill Kelly who pitched for a number of years under the 1-year contract, but had a phenomenal degree of success.
Okay.
Well, you've had guys like Josh Lindblom, Brooks Raley, all these guys. Dustin Nippert as well is a phenomenal example of this. Dustin Nippert, the most long-serving KBO player in history out of the foreign player rosters. Like, these guys had 1-year contracts every year, and that may have incentivized them to do their best. But I really think that with multi-year deals in place, it's going to allow for players to kind of become more settled into their role and to establish a greater level of trust and rapport in the team.
Well, okay, but then by that, if that's in that you see that in all sports in all countries, but by that logic, then there should be no 2-year deals. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're going to only have a 1-year deals for the foreign players, then you should have 1-year deals for the domestic players. But here's the other thing, Matthew. If you want to bring in some talent from other countries, some of these guys, they're married, they have families, they're a little older in their career, they want security for their families, and they want that security that comes for a 2-year deal. So I'm not saying that foreign players should arbitrarily be given 2 or 3-year contracts because of their citizenship. If they're a new guy, they're coming into Korea, they want to test them out, by all means, a 1-year contract. But like if Nippert, who has proven himself time and time again, and some of the other players you've mentioned, I think as long as they've earned it, there should be no restrictions against those offers based on their citizenship. That's all I'm saying.
Speaking of citizenship, actually, there was a lot of outcry from fans across the KBO to offer Nippert's Korean settlement citizenship, or to count him on the Korean players side of the roster, so that he could continue playing and not take up a foreign roster spot. Like, a guy who serves as long as that, I feel truly deserves it. Like, he's committed to a team for that long. Like, he had a very tearful farewell video where he was saying, "I will retire a Doosan Bear." And then when his numbers dipped slightly. Like that 1 year rule kind of came into it, and he ended up having to finish his career at KT. Like what could have
He
been
was.
an all over phenomenal story ended up kind of ending with a whimper, which is a little bit sad.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
That's
again,
not to
I
say he
don't.
didn't do well at KT. Like he had a good season there as well.
Right, right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know the rules and how it works for citizenship, but I do know there were about, I don't want to give a number and be wrong, over 15 athletes from around the world that became naturalized citizens of different winter sports for the Olympics in 2018. Most of them were Canadian hockey players who had spent some time in Korea. Fair enough. Played for 3 or 4 years for various teams. And if you're,
Yeah.
I don't know, you're right. I think someone like Dustin Nippert should definitely have been given the option of accepting, if not a full-fledged citizen, definitely a permanent resident. He was married to a
Or
Korean
an exemption
national.
under the KBO rules. Like they
Sure,
have the
sure.
power to make that amendment.
I agree. You know what? If they don't even have to get citizenship or immigration involved, if someone who has played for a certain number of years consistently, who's represented themselves well, they've represented the team well and the KBO well, there should definitely be exceptions made.
Yeah. I think I just had a quick glance at my book collection. I think it was in this one, Throwback by Jason Kendall, like a catcher from the big leagues who talks about how the game is played, different positions, whatever else. I think it could have been in here, or it might have been in Moneyball. I'm not sure which one. But one of the books, there's a quote in there somewhere that says, if you want a World Series winning side or a championship winning side, give me a team of players on the last year of their contract, and I will give you that championship winning team. So that might well be where the mentality comes from.
Are you talking about the 1 year contracts?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, I mean, like I said, they give players, I got Korean players, multi-year contracts.
Well, they're not going anywhere for the most part.
No.
There's definitely a couple who are MLB quality, and like I'm excited to see what happens during the offseason. Like, there's been rumors that Young Hyun Jung's going to try and post or try his luck as a free agent, try get an MLB contract. Na Sung Bum, Kim Ha Sung are two options for posting as well, I believe. So it'll be exciting to see, first off, how the talent gets thinned out in the KBO league, but also if they get offered like the minor league deals and then an option to go up, or if they just straight out get offered an MLB contract. It'll be interesting to see.
Have you heard any rumors? And I don't know when his contract ends. He's really, really young. Koo Chong Mo for the NC Dinos.
If memory serves, he's got 4
he's got some
more
time.
years, I believe, until he's eligible for posting.
Right, yeah, and he's injured right now, but
possibly 5. But like he
5.
has bags of potential. Like there was an article put out earlier this week where Drew Rosinski mentioned that he has the exact same stuff as Kim Kwang-hyun, who's enjoying a very nice season at the Cardinals. But you just have to think, is he going to burn out with the level of usage he's going to get in KBO first? That's the issue. Like if they manage his injury properly and help him stay healthy, then there's no limit to what he can achieve.
Yeah, well, I guess it gets down to how the NC Dinos organization wants to run their shop. But we've both read you gotta have law, and I think some of that mentality extends across the water here. So
yeah, I'm glad though that NC decided to check in on the pain he had in his arm and the swelling and found that fracture, because if he'd pitched for a few more weeks with that, we could have been looking at a much longer spell out of action and possibly something that would have dampened his career. So in terms of teams he could be on, to have that kind of support level behind him and to give him that level of just support and help him through injuries and help make sure that he stays the best player he can be. Like, NC is one of the best teams in terms of that, up there with Doosan and even LG to a degree, with player longevity and how they support their players.
Yeah, I've seen that, I think, with the NC Dinos, how they treat their foreign players and how they treat some of obviously their own local players, and makes a difference. So yeah, hopefully good things happen to him and he gets the support that he needs.
Indeed. So I think that's about enough for our discussion section.
Yep.
Let's have a quick round out. Who do you think is going to round out the season? I think we're established that NC is going to be first, but 2, 3, 4, 5, who's your choice?
Let me have a think.
I'll give you mine while we're thinking then. So my number 2, I think KT's going to nip it and take it away from the Heroes. Number 3, I think, is going to be the Kiwoom Heroes. Number 4, I think Doosan are going to come back and pip that from the Twins. And the 5th place spot, I reckon, will round out being LG Twins. I think the top of the table is going to stay unaltered for the most part. It's going to be those 5 teams that are there now. End of the season, I think it'll still be them.
So NC Dino's obviously number 1. Hopefully, I don't want to have to buy another jersey this year. Yeah, I'd like to see. I'm going to go with what I'd like to see. That's possible within reality. I'd like to see the Heroes knocked out. I would like to see the LG Twins knock the Heroes down into 3rd place, and I'd like to say the Wiz get into the playoffs riding the 4th position, beating the Doosan Bears, who make it in 5th. Sorry, Kia, you're staying in the 6th.
All right. Well,
you know what? Let me have one little tweak.
Oh,
I'm going with what I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see Kia go up and face the KT Wiz in that ridiculous wild card match.
Ooh, so you're calling for Doosan to get knocked out of the playoff picture entirely. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've got some friends that cheer for the Tigers, and
I think there would be no shortage of fans on the My KBO Facebook page who would be overjoyed to see that scenario play out.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of Doosan fans, but there's a lot of Doosan haters. Maybe combined, there's a lot more Doosan haters. Yeah.
Well, I'm a Lotte fan. We hate anything resembling success. So, yeah, at this point, we're all going to start hating on NC soon enough. All right, then. So with that done, Let's have a look at the Hall of Fame.
My mind is spinning with possibilities. I think the problem is every week, like a good competitor, I want to win. So I try my best to put forth a good submission. But I think maybe what I should do is take the low road and try and put forth a submission that I don't think is going to win. And we'll see what happens. Plus, I've only got instead of a 33% chance or 1 in 3, I only have a 1 in 2 now. So.
Indeed. And I've been mentioning the word donuts quite a lot lately, so I'm sure you'll get the sympathy vote from a lot of people this week. So I'll even leave it up to you. As we, before we go into who won the vote between the 2 people last week, would you like to do a Hall of Fame or a Hall of Shame?
I've got one in mind. You know what? Let's do Hall of Shame.
Okay.
Yeah, my entry could, when the stars are aligned and you have, when you're a legally registered long-term foreigner, it goes on the Wall of Fame. But when you're a tourist coming to Korea for a visit, or maybe you're in the American military services and you don't have an alien card, and you want to get good seats to a ball game, this is going on the Wall of Shame. Okay, here we go. I got one. I got a good one.
I think you're about to steal my choice from under me, but you know what?
I honestly don't know what your choice is.
You remember I mentioned this last time we did the Hall of Shame? I said I have a guaranteed winner. I have a feeling you're about to steal this from me, but you know what?
Not intentionally, man.
I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah.
Beforehand, though, let's have a look at how the voting turned out for last week. Last week, the nominations were the concept of KBO-ness, the fact that what can will go wrong, what can will go right in the KBO. That ended up with a meager 33% of the vote. And with 66% of the vote, the winner was the 2009 Korea Series walk-off home run from Naji-won. So Andrew Farrell finally gets his wish, and Naji-won ends up in the Hall of Fame.
He's a very likable person, so...
he is.
Naji-won, not Andrew. God, no. Naji-won is a very...
I hate that guy. God. Could we just have the two of us every week from now on? Ugh.
I like only if for any reason but to increase my odds.
If only for that. All right.
Yeah.
So like I don't mind that. Like it in terms of moments that we've had beyond Doosan like dethroning Samsung and the Grand Slam from Ibom Ho in the Korea Series where Kia Tigers last picked up their championship. I think this is up there with like the all-time great moments. Along with like the last out being a ground ball that would have been a game-winning single or a game-tying single getting stopped because of torrential rain when the Hyundai Unicorns won their last Korea Series as well. Like moments are what all of the stories and all of the passion is built about in a league. And I think it's a worthy winner for last week's Hall of Fame vote. Luckily for us, we're not doing the Hall of Fame. We're talking about what boils our blood. So I'll let you go first, and then I'm going to have to think really hard because I think you're about to take it away from me. Go on. What's your vote?
This is going to be Wall of Shame, negativity, okay? But it's not all negativity. Here's my little disclaimer. What I'm about to rip on, it's not always bad. If you are, obviously, if you're a Korean citizen, if you are a legally registered foreigner, such as Matthew, Andrew Martin, myself, many fans of the show. You've got a Korean bank account and you've got everything set up. You can read a little Korean.
A little bit of a phone number.
A little bit of a phone number in your name, spelled correctly, last name first. It's not a problem. But if you are a tourist to Korea, if you are Korean ancestry, citizenship in another country, and you've come back for a visit, if you are a member of the U.S. military, you simply cannot buy baseball tickets online. It's impossible. You can go to the MLB, you can go to the NHL, you can go to the NBA. As long as you have a valid credit card number, you can buy tickets, okay? And the ticket agencies that issue tickets, there's two of them that do most of the teams, Interpark and TicketLink. They sell tickets to foreign tourists for Broadway shows and K-pop concerts. So I believe the hurdle is not from the companies that issue the tickets. I believe it actually comes from the KBO itself, and it's really awful because a lot of people, especially I think in the upcoming years, Matthew, with the exposure of the KBO on ESPN, they want to come to Korea. Korea's got a great profile. They're doing very well on the music charts, the films. There's a lot of Korean exposure, Korean food. People want to come to Korea. They want to experience the culture. They want to go to a ball game. And if they don't know anyone here, the only chance they have is to buy one from the box office, which is possible, but you may not get a good seat, and it's just a real hassle. So I think, to sum up my nomination for the Wall of Shame, it's the KBO's policy on letting people, or the exclusivity of buying tickets, limited to those who are legally registered foreigners. It's very shameful, and I would like to see that improve. For all the people who don't fit into that category and who want to come and enjoy the KBO, because the KBO is a really good experience. And I guarantee you, any tourist, even if you're not into baseball, even if you're not into sports, if you really want to experience Korean culture, you got to go to a KBO game.
Agreed. Absolutely, 100% agreed. Like, yeah, buying tickets when you're not familiar with Korean or when you're not familiar with how the apps work, even if you have all of the things you mentioned, and you make one error, or the person inputting your data at the immigration office makes one error with the spelling of your name, and it doesn't match your bank account, it doesn't match your card, it doesn't match your registration, that's it.
If
Everything has to match for this real ID verification. So just checking, is your issue with the real ID verification system, or was it just with the incessant ball ache that it is to buy tickets online?
It's the whole thing, and I've taken it more of a foreign visitor to Korea's aspect. But you could have fluent Korean skills, and not get it. And then there's the issues, of course, and I didn't mention them, but when it comes to the postseason, how it gets flooded. A lot of guys and gals that we know, they have their registered card, they have the bank account, immigration doesn't mess up. And the whole system just completely crushes and implodes when tickets become available. Now, I understand rushes on tickets occur in other countries and concerts and certain events, but you don't have the implosion that you have. There are guys that go to 100 games a year and they can't get postseason tickets because of the way that the ticket issue. And when it comes to the postseason, the postseason tickets are over, or what's the word?
Saturated.
Not saturated, but they are overseen by another organization, and
it's still Interpark. Like, I can tell you exactly the way the postseason tickets work. The companies represented by the teams inside of the playoff picture, they get first priority on ticket choices for their employees. And those tickets get allocated in blocks of up to 4 per employee. So at that point, the employees will get maybe a third of the tickets overall assigned to them in the premier spaces inside the stadium. These employees, until the last second, will not actually claim them, and then they open up. So when tickets open on Interpark, which the KBO has uniformly decided postseason tickets must be managed via that app, people will log in, try get a cheer section seat, try get a whatever seat, and it's basically a free-for-all. You'll have 10 up to 5, 6, 7,000 people, 10,000 in some cases if you get a team like Hanwha. I believe the site crashed when they first ended up getting into the postseason, and or when they most recently got into the postseason rather. And what ends up happening is there's a sudden flood right before the game or the day before the game where tickets will open up in the very early hours of the morning. The problem with that is most of the tickets picked up by the employees of said companies that are represented by these teams, they end up on the resale market. They end up with scalpers outside the stadium. They end up with Ticket Bay, where, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Hanwha Eagles tickets for their playoff game last season, the first game, were going for $1.1 million each.
Yeah, I heard that, which is about $900 American, approximately. So
yeah, that's the ridiculous amount people are paying for it.
Hanwha Eagles.
In terms of pricing for KBO tickets, how they usually are, postseason tickets are basically just double the regular season price. In
Which makes
MLB
them still
equivalent,
affordable.
that would be like people paying thousands to go and see the Cubs in their World Series games. That's the level you're at.
Right. Well, which some of those Cubby tickets went for $100,000, but
it's ridiculous. It's not quite that level, but it's definitely pushing what it would be for a 10,000 equivalent, which was not uncommon at the time.
I mean, I don't have a problem with someone who works for Samsung having access to Samsung Lions tickets if he or she wants to go. But I like to see it better run and better managed, so that if they want to go, they can go. If they don't want to go, they go to a legitimate fan.
I've been to a number of playoff games, been standing, cheering. Like, you've been to a playoff game. You've seen the atmosphere. It's like KBO's standard atmosphere on steroids. Like, all of the diehard fans are there screaming, standing up for the entire game. I went to a playoff game and got told by a group of old guys behind me in suits to sit down because they couldn't see the game because I was being too noisy.
Yeah, though it's so crazy at those games. Do you know what a skyjack is? A skyjack is, let's say you are, I don't know, you want to paint the ceiling of a 10-meter building. A skyjack is one of those things you get on and moves you up, real high. They put their like shear masters on these skyjacks, and they go up, and they've got these things blowing up in flames and pyrotechnics. The NC Dinos a couple of years ago brought back Eric Thames to get the fans, no longer in the KBO. The fans are all up. It really is an exciting environment. They have massive, absolutely massive flags flying by actually employees
in
of the
uniform,
company,
no less.
Right. If you talk to them, I was flying one last year for the NC Dinos. It really is. It really is an experience. So.
Yeah, I do love seeing the fans bringing their own flags. I'm not a big fan of the massive flags that end up in the outfield, though, because the way they just go in that figure-8 circle, like, you can tell they are paid to do that.
Yeah, well, like I said, if you talk to the guys nicely, like I did last year, I was that guy for an inning. Yeah.
Oh, there used to be a guy back in the old Samsung Line Citizen Stadium. He had this enormous flag. Like, if you laid this flag, it would cover a block of seats.
Right.
Like, I asked him, and he let me wave that around one time. I very nearly broke the pole because I was swinging it that hard. Like, just the inertia was taking it, and you could hear the metal, like, resisting. So eventually I got told to put that down, but that was a great experience. Ended up going for drinks after the game with him and a couple of his friends afterwards. Great night out, that one. But yeah, like, I fully agree with you. Like, it is a nightmare trying to get tickets at the best of times in the KBO. It's even worse in the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at the moment, it's impossible, and I hope that the fans get let back in soon. So
cheers to that. So what's your submission, Matthew?
You took my submission, actually, so I'm going to have to think really quickly about it.
So then I should definitely win, right?
Maybe,
I got all my bases covered.
You know what? I'm gonna just go. Your experience is buying the tickets. I'm gonna go one further. The people who have this difficulty in buying tickets are typically left with one choice when they get to the stadium. Maybe two. First choice is to go up to the window, try and negotiate first off which line they need to get into to buy the tickets, because it could be a window-only redemption line or a mobile phone redemption line, which is hilarious, and I've done it myself many times, where they tell you to go into another line and, oh, I don't speak enough Korean. Please help me. I don't know what to do. Get out of the line. Okay. You finally find the right line. Sorry, tickets sold out. This old guy who's been following you all the way around outside the stadium just says, hey, you want a ticket? $50. My nomination is scalpers. Particularly, you know what? I'm going to keep your theme in honor of you. The scalpers outside of Jamshil. Because those guys and girls, because I'm pretty sure they're all in league with each other, they will buy tickets in bulk en masse and then wait until it's nearly game time, offer to trade them out to people, maybe at a slight loss to themselves so that they can get the premium seats, and then try and charge people through the teeth to get those.
Yeah.
And I myself have ended up paying far more than I should have for a fairly lousy Navy seat in Jamshil, which in of itself is not a bad seat by any stretch of the imagination. But when it gets to important games, important series, the ones you want to go to on lovely days where it's sold out.
Right.
Those are the tickets that they end up getting en masse, and those are the ones they charge an arm and a leg for. So those scalpers, especially during the postseason, when they're charging, I believe the last time Lotte had a game, they were charging hundreds for a single ticket for outfield seats, and people were paying for it.
Well,
I get it. It's a market demand, but I personally despise that act.
You asked me a couple months ago on this program what I thought of scalpers. Do you remember my answer without any hesitation?
I would love you to say it again.
Scumbags, all of them, every single one of them. Scumbags. That's in all leagues, all country. I'm not talking about the guys who bought a $10 ticket and is trying to sell it for $11. I'm talking about the people who have nothing better to do than to buy tickets, preventing people who are working or whatever, buying up all those tickets and selling them at 3 or 4 times the value. Total scumbags.
Yep. I'm glad that the league finally decided to crack down on it. And I do recall one incident of King Ajashi basically crying foul and kicking and screaming, trying to fight security as they arrested and dragged him off. That was a glorious sight. But it doesn't happen often enough, and they're still doing it. Or they will be doing it when the fans open up again.
Right.
In terms of the COVID tickets, like everything had to be real name verified. So it made that practice impossible for them to do. And that was a good experience for me, going to the stadium, knowing that it wasn't going to happen, where they would try and ask me, hey, do you want a ticket? Instead, it was just a case of, okay, now I have to navigate the COVID system. But that in of itself is pretty easy. And hopefully they'll be able to have fans in time for postseason. But with it being 20 games away, I'm not sure if we'll see it this year.
Yeah. Would it be funny? Postseason comes in, all right. I somehow get tickets through the system I've just criticized. And where would I watch those postseason games, Matthew? At the Gojak Dome, which I have also nominated on my wall of shame. I think if that happened, I would nominate myself on the wall of shame as a bleeding hypocrite.
And I would be happy to vote for you.
That'll be my win. There we go. That's what I'm aiming for.
All right, then. So, Bradley Hyder, is there anything that you would like to say in parting to our listeners?
Nope, not this week. We appreciate your continued support, and we look forward to producing the next episode.
All right. So regarding the next episode, I regret to inform everyone who's listened to us this far, next week's episode is going to be pushed back for a week because we are going to be celebrating Chuseok this next week, the Harvest Festival in Korea, where we're basically going to go and have a lot of food and drinks with our respective Korean families. Bradley, what are you going to be doing for Chuseok?
Well, plans are still in the works, but I will be spending time with my lovely relatives, in-laws in Daejeon, home of the Eagles.
Nice.
Yep, and I also have some family in Changwon, home of the Dinos, that I hope to get down and see as well. Maybe crank out a couple 100 kilometers on the bike, but because you mentioned Chuseok, let's remind the fans, especially those that are new to the KBO, that a lot of the games, I think all the games on speaking in Korean time, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, will be played at 2 p.m. Because of the Chuseok schedule.
I believe so. I'll just double check that now. Yep, 2 p.m. for the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're going to have a almost entire week of early starts, with the only 6:30 starts being on the Tuesday. So, that's going to be kind of exciting. I feel bad for the players having to play through the holiday, but given the truncated schedule for the season, there's no getting around it.
We all got to make sacrifices. And Matthew, what about you? What are your Chuseok 2020 plans?
Well, my plans are to have some tasty drinks, have some tasty food, and some good company.
Very good. Very good.
Can never go wrong with the family, can never go wrong with the wife. So it's going to be a good one.
Good stuff.
All right, then. So that concludes our show for this week. Remember, don't forget to love each other. Have a happy Chuseok. You can always become a friend of the show. Follow us on Twitter at Grand Slam KBO, at ChiMecBaseball, at Grand Slam Hider, and at Probably Brad. Thank you very much, and have a happy Chuseok.